the two Scottish locations. One is the Western Hebrides, and I had actually been on vacation there, and we stayed on the island where I then put this death. Because it was the most evocative place. We're on a loch, in an island in the middle of a loch that was open to the ocean, and it was extraordinarily beautiful. And we had a cottage overlooking it, and I thought, I have to use that in a book. I mean, why wouldn't you? St Andrews was intriguing. First of all, my husband went to university there, so it's kind of on the family radar. And it's unique because it's a extremely tiny city. So it's got this rich past, all this history, which was attractive to me for the plot of the book, which is about ancient manuscripts and mysteries and that kind of thing, if people haven't read it. And I thought, what a great remote sort of architecturally and historically rich location. It's somewhere you could hide out quite easily if you didn't have great motives for your academic research. So Eleanor Bruton is a little bit, as Anne Cleeves described Vera. She's an invisible older woman who's just been a kind of grandma and a mom, and she is finds we meet her on this very remote Scottish island, and she is extremely paranoid. She has rented a cottage, and she hasn't seen anybody for a month, and she is constantly watching out the window to make sure nobody knows where she is, because she has in her possession something extremely valuable that a lot of people want. And part of the mystery unfolding through the book is how did Eleanor Bruton, who does the flowers in church and helps out in the village, end up there? It's not a spoiler to say that dear Eleanor Bruton dies in the prologue. She is in fact discovered on the island, and she loses her life. So meanwhile, back down south in London, Cleo Spicer is a young detective who is at the retirement party of her mentor, another female detective. And at this party, she is told, you need to meet me tomorrow before I retire. I need to tell you something. And they meet at the British Museum, and they go and look at this very, 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 very insignificant looking little scrap of embroidery. And she is told that this is the key to a bigger mystery and a great deal of danger. And before she can get too much more information out of her mentor, as they leave the museum, her mentor gets into some strife. And yeah, and so it's Cleo's job to discover exactly what she meant and what the embroidery means and what on earth is going on. So we have two rival organizations of women who want something extremely valuable, the key to which is through some ancient manuscripts and a fragment of embroidery. So the Catherineite, they both want the same thing. They both want more power for women. They want equality for women, but they're going about it in very different ways. So the Order of St. Catherine believe that the best way to attain power for women is to do it the traditional way, to work through men, like the famous wives of Roman emperors who in the end, pulled the puppet strings and were the real power base. They think that's the way to go. But the Fellowship of the Larks, they believe the opposite. They think women should be in the top jobs like men. They think, we should have overt positions of power. And this causes a problem. They were originally one group who have had a schism, had a split. So they both know there's this extremely valuable thing out there, which is important to them in different ways, and they must find it. Dr. Anya Brown is a really young woman who's just completing her PhD. And she's, if you like, my equivalent of Dan Brown's Robert Langdon. But except that she's female and she's young. And she has come to prominence in her field by translating Folio 9, which is a mysterious and untranslatable piece of ancient text. So she's come to prominence, and it means that she has her pick of really plum jobs after her PhD is finished, and she picks the wrong one. Professor Diana Cornish is the first representative of the Institute of Ancient Manuscripts from St Andrews, who Anya Brown meets. She goes to London to have an interview with Diana Cornish. And she wasn't really considering St Andrews, and Anya thought she'd rather go to Harvard or Yale or maybe hop over to Cambridge or somewhere in Europe. But Diana Cornish, who's incredibly chic and seems to be have a highly funded institute, makes her an offer that she can't refuse, to come up to St Andrews and bring her boyfriend Sid and work on a very, very secret collection of manuscripts that nobody's ever seen before. I would say that it's quite chaotic. I kind of make it up as I go along, which does cause me problems, as you might imagine, because the plots are quite complex. So I sort of throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall in a first draft, and then I really find the book in the edit. And that's when I streamline the plot and the mystery and check there's enough in there. The Burning Library has some kind of puzzles and riddles and things in it. So they all had to be checked and double checked and made sure they worked effectively. So it's quite difficult because you sort of have to, you know where you want a character to be. So you sometimes can't write a riddle till you've finished a plot point. So there's a bit of sort of weaving backwards and forwards, if you like, to make sure it all works in the end.